Hi guys, good evening. Welcome to TalentSprint. I am Surabhi. Welcome to another live session at TalentSprint. The title of the live session, might interest some of you, and some of you might be wondering कि क्या हो रहा है भाई, मतलब what is happening. I can see Rubina and Tharun and Technical Prakash and Bhavani are already with us. Hi guys. So for this session today, guys, believe it or not, last 2 hours I've spent with some newspapers. So 1, 2, 3. I had 3 editions of the Hindu with me and I was going through them. So I just went through the Hindu of Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Now, the minute I say the Hindu newspaper, all of us get really scared. And let me talk of the most scary section of the Hindu newspaper, the editorial. Now, for every competitive exam you guys prepare, and every time you guys are going for interviews and you guys are going for GDs, what does everyone tell you? Read the editorial of the Hindu newspaper. Now, when it comes to reading the editorial of the Hindu newspaper, all of us can do it. But do we understand it? Well, some of us face major problems. हमें से कुछ लोगों को बहुत problem होती है समझने में. So what should we do? Why do we face problems? Because often, guys, there are lots of words whose meanings we do not understand. We are very confused, If we don't understand the meaning of the word, how are we going to even understand what the passage says? So, today's session will answer that problem. In today's session, we will learn how to find out meanings of words whose meanings we don't know. But if we read the sentence in which the word has been used, maybe contextually, one sentence before it, one sentence after it, and we pick up some clues, it becomes extremely easy for us to understand the meaning of the word and what the word means. So some of you might be wondering where this is useful. So when you guys write, employment eligibility tests like AMCAT, you often get exercises like fill in the blanks or reading comprehension or close passage, where there are words whose meanings you do not know, but those meanings of those words are very important to finish that exercise. So that is what we will do today. Find out meanings of words contextually using sentences before and after that sentence and find them out. So I can see a lot of you have joined us. So hi Cox, hi Ketul, hi Koruduna, hi Akshay, hi Manoj. A very good evening to all of you. आप सबको बहुत बहुत good evening. तो चलिए, let's get started, guys. Let us start and see. Okay. So what I have done, guys, is that I've taken a screenshot of an article that appeared in the Hindu, and I'm going to discuss that article with you, find out the difficult words. So let's read the article first, guys. Let's get started. I did not imagine that my column and impunity that can be countered. So I can see one difficult word here, impunity, that can be countered, could be provocative. For me, provocative could be a difficult word. The intention was to provide a tool to deal with sources who had habitually misled reporters and to protect journalistic credibility from the onslaught of multiple stories emanating from the corridors of power. I did not realize that a column needs caveats to mean what it intends to mean. So guys, जैसा कि आपने देखा, we have read the first passage and we have underlined some difficult words whose meanings we may not know. So let's look at the first word, impunity, and let's read the sentence. I did not imagine that my last column and impunity that could be countered could be provocative. Now we know that this person who's written the article is talking about a previous article that he had written, and the title of the article was An Impunity That Can Be Countered. An impunity. Now, what does the word impunity mean? If you ask me impunity, IMPUNITY. So I can see Arvind here has asked me a question, is it American English or British English? Well, Arvind, in India, we traditionally follow British English and we do not follow American English. So yes, this would be British English and not American. So I did not imagine that my last column, and impunity can be countered, could be provocative. So provocative. Now, if you all know, we have all heard the word provocation. Now, what does the word provocation mean? Provocation means when we try and incite someone, when we try and, arouse certain feelings in someone in a negative way. While let's say your mother is very angry and you further go on and do something, so you provoke her to do something. So we know that the word provocative would somehow mean, when you get a reaction in some way, when you encounter a reaction in somebody, when you force someone to give a negative reaction, usually of something to do with anger. So here, if you notice, I did not imagine that my last column, the title could be provocative. So the author is saying that he did not know that the last newspaper article that he wrote would make people angry. So provocative, we could generally say make angry, make someone really angry. Now, let's go on to the word impunity now. Now we have figured out what provocative means. I did not imagine that my last column, and impunity can be countered. Now, impunity actually means when someone is exempted from punishment, when someone who's already given a punishment is told that luckily you are not going to be punished. So if we notice, impunity, like I said, guys, means freedom from punishment. So just let me put it first, then we will see the meaning. Freedom from punishment. Now guys, let's go back to the sentence. I did not imagine that my last column, and impunity can be countered, meaning that when you are given freedom from punishment, something can be done about it. And why did people get angry? Because they were wondering, how can someone get freedom from the punishment that has been given to them? Let's move ahead. Okay, let's look at the next word. The intention was to provide a tool to deal with sources who have habitually misled reporters and to protect journalistic credibility. Now, to protect journalistic credibility, what does journalists, or we know that journalists are people who write in newspapers. They have immense amount of respect among the people. Now, what does the word credibility mean? We all know credibility actually comes from the word credit. Credit is when we when we tell someone that you have the credit for this, something good you have done, we will give you credit for this. Now, what does the word credibility mean? We all know that journalists, since the journalists are people who write for newspapers, since journalists are people who write for newspapers, they are someone whom we can trust, because the news that is written by them is something that people who read the newspaper or people who watch the news on the TV believe. So therefore, it is very important that journalists are people, someone whom we can trust. So what does the word credibility mean? Credibility means the quality of being able to trust someone. So journalists have credibility means journalists have the quality of being trusted. So let's put down our meaning here. Our meaning here is quality of being trusted. Now guys, let's move ahead and look at the next word. Okay, to protect journalistic credibility from the onslaught of multiple stories. Now, big hint word here, if you ask me guys, multiple is a big hint word here. What does multiple mean? Multiple means many. Like I had gone to the bookstore to buy one book, but I ended up buying multiple books, meaning many. So now if you notice in the passage, guys, that onslaught of multiple stories means many stories. So what would onslaught means? Onslaught is something where we are referring to, a large number of stories just came. So guys, we can easily say that onslaught refers to a large number of something. Large number of, in this case, stories. So it can mean a large number of stories, a large number of people who collect somewhere. So onslaught refers to a large number of things, people, or anything. Let's look at the next word. Okay, stories emanating from the corridors of power. Now, if you notice, there are multiple stories, there are large number of stories dashed from the corridors of power, meaning emanating that they come from somewhere. And yes, and emanating actually means origin of. Something that originates somewhere. So we can say originating. O-R-I-G-I, originating from. So we can easily, if you notice, large stories originating from the corridors of power, meaning that they come from the corridors of power. I did not realize that a column needed caveats to mean what it intended to mean. Now, caveats, what does the author say? So if you notice, the author tells us that he wrote a certain article. He did not believe that certain people would get angry, and then he talks of how reporters today need credibility from the different and many kinds of articles that are actually coming from corridors of power, and he did not realize that a column needs caveats to mean what it intended to mean. Caveats actually refers to a kind of warning. So he says that he had no clue that a column that a newspaper writes needs to have a warning and tell people that what it actually means. Okay, so now I can see there are, I'm going to wait and I'm going to see that there are a sudden stream of questions that people are asking. So let me go back and look at the questions that you guys are asking. Okay, so Arvind is asking us, what is the difference in British and American English? Well, Arvind, the difference is in terms of pronunciation and spellings largely, with some very little nitty-gritty differences in grammar. Okay, so which newspaper should you read? Ideally, if you ask me, any newspaper would be good, starting from the Hindu, the Hindustan Times, the Times of India, the Deccan Chronicle, Indian Express, any newspaper would be good. Well, Madhav, I will come back to a reasoning session soon, don't worry. And Arvind, my name is Surabhi. Alright guys, so now you can notice that we have got the first paragraph cleared. Let's try and look at the remaining part of the passage and see what words there are. A section of readers, reporters and journalism students wanted to know whether I have changed my opinion about the importance of attribution and the rules of granting anonymity. Anonymity here seems like a difficult word in the present political climate. In my journalism classes, I often draw attention to the searing opening lines from the Janet Malcolm's The Journalist and the Murderer. So what does this opening line from The Journalist and the Murderer say? Every journalist who is not too stupid or too full of himself to notice what is going on knows what he has done is morally indefensible. He is a kind of a confidence man preying on people's vanity, ignorance and loneliness, gaining their trust and betraying them without remorse. The questions posed by the students were sharp and honest. How do we deal with a multi-platform media reality where no one likes to miss a story? In an opaque structure where access has become a favor provided by those in power, What options are left for reporters to do their jobs ethically in a competent manner? So if you notice in this passage, guys, we are talking of what are the things that a good journalist or a good reporter that we say. So what are the things that a good journalist or a good reporter should do? What are the things he should do, not do while he does journalism? So I can see someone here has asked us the meaning for slaughter. Well, slaughter actually means to kill someone, which is why we often say, if you notice, we often use, when some terror attack happens, people are brutally killed, we say X number of people were slaughtered. Or we've often heard in news how ISIS captures some journalists and often it slaughters them, it kills them by chopping their heads off. Those gruesome, brutal videos that we have all seen. So slaughter actually means to kill someone, to chop them. Okay, so well, let's look at these words now. Let's look at the first word, anonymity. Now, if you ask me, anonymity comes from the word anonymous. What does the word anonymous mean? Anonymous actually means something that is not known. So, if you read here, a section of readers, reporters and journalism students wanted to know whether I have changed my opinion about the importance of attribution and the rules of granting anonymity in the present climate. Now, if you notice, most reporters, since their job is really risky, the job of reporters needs them to go research in dangerous places, pose as people who they are, who they are not, so that people can talk to them, take people in confidence, make them tell things that they would not otherwise tell people. So journalists like to remain in anonymity, like to remain unknown, like to be in a situation where people do not know them. So we can say that anonymity actually means unknown. Now let's move to the next word, indefensible. Okay, let's look at the sentence. Every journalist who is not too stupid or too full of himself to notice what is going on knows that what he does is morally indefensible. Now we know, guys, that in is a prefix. Usually when in is added before a word, the meaning of the word becomes opposite. Like for example, let us, any word that we add in before, as a prefix, the word, the meaning of the word becomes like active, inactive. Active is when we are in action. Inactive is when we are not in action. So what does the word defensible mean? Defensible means when you can defend something, right? Defensible comes from the word defense. Defense is when you protect. Defensible becomes something that can be protected. So what does indefensible become? Indefensible becomes something that cannot be protected. So let's write our meaning there. Indefensible, something that cannot be justified or protected. Cannot be justified. Okay, let's move to the next word, vanity. So now he is talking of the characteristics of a journalist and he says, he is a kind of confidence man preying on people's vanity, ignorance or loneliness. Now if you notice, there are all negative words here. We know ignorance, when we do not know something, is slightly negative. Loneliness, again, where we do not understand something, is slightly negative. So what is the word? People's vanity. Now we are again talking of basic negative traits of people. So we know vanity has to be a negative trait. Now, if you notice, we have spoken of ignorance when we do not know something, loneliness when we are alone. Well, vanity means when we have too much pride in ourselves. So vanity is too much pride in one's self. In one's self, when we have too much pride. Let's look at Ashok, I just saw your comment. You cannot understand the passage well. Try and make an attempt. After I discuss the meanings of all the words, I will discuss the meaning of the passage and once again quickly revise the meanings of words and give you examples, sentences to ensure that you clearly understand the meanings of these words. So remorse. Let's move to the sentence. Okay, so he is a kind of confidence man preying on people's vanity, ignorance, or loneliness, gaining their trust and betraying them without remorse. So, like I was saying, what do journalists do? Journalists get people into confidence, they make them speak to themselves, and then often whatever they have spoken, people have revealed to them, they go and write in the newspaper or they make it public without remorse. Now, ideally, when I would be doing something, for example, my friend has told me something, in confidence, she tells me, Surbhi, I'm telling you this, please don't tell this to anyone. If I betray her, if I do something that is against what she said, I will feel sad. I will feel a sense of regret. I will feel that, my God, what am I doing? I should not have done this. So I will feel sorry. I will feel regret. That is exactly, guys, what the word remorse means. That when journalists betray people, they do not feel sorry. They do not regret. So regret. Let's look at the next word, posed. The questions posed by students. Simple, the questions that were presented by students. The questions that were presented by students were, sharp, competent. Next comes competent. Okay, let's read the sentence. In an opaque structure where access has become a favor provided by those in power, what options are left for reporters to do their job ethically and in a competent manner? Well, guys, any job that you guys do or any job that I do, we have to be competent to do it. Now, what does it mean to do our job in a competent manner? To do our job in a skillful way, to do our job in a way, to have the skill to do something. So that is when we do our job in a competent way. So reporters, not only reporters have to have the skill to do something, but they also have to do it ethically. So what does competent mean? To have the skill. So let's put our meaning. To have the skill. Have the skill. There goes the meaning of the word. Well, guys, let's go to the passage. Let's read the passage once again and let me discuss the meaning of the passage. So we know, guys, okay, let's read the first passage, discuss what it means and then move ahead. I did not imagine that my last column, and impunity can be countered, would be provocative. So what does the author say here? The author says that he wrote a column that was published in the newspaper. The title of the column was that and impunity can be countered, that freedom from punishment can be countered, and he did not know that that article would make people angry. Then he tells us why did he write the article. The intention was to provide a tool to deal with sources who have habitually misled reporters and to protect journalistic credibility. Let's stop here and try and understand. He says, why did he write the article? He says he wanted to write an article which would give people the means, a way to deal with such people and such things who have habitually, time and again told lies to reporters, and to protect, and what is another reason? He also wanted to protect the credibility, the trusts that reporters have from the many stories that powerful people tell, which may or may not be true. Then, I did not realize that a column needed caveats to mean that it intended to mean. He said he did not know that a column that he wrote would need him to warn people. That he did not know that a column that he had written he would need to warn people. Okay, so Tharun has asked us a question here. He says, Competent means the skill which one has or the skill which one should develop. Well, competent means the skill that you have. So, well, I am competent enough to do the job. You are not competent enough to do the job. When we say you are competent enough to do the job, it means that you have the skills to do the job. But if we say you are not competent enough to do the job, it means that you do not have the skills to do the job. Competency would mean skill set, but competent means to have the skill. So, well, guys, let's move to the second passage and try and see what is said in the second paragraph. Okay, so the author says that a section of readers, reporters and journalism students wanted to know whether he had any change in his opinion about the importance of attribution and the rules of granting anonymity in the present political climate. So here the writer says, he interacts with a lot of people. Some of them are readers, some are reporters and some are journalism students. And they wanted to know that what is the author's opinion about that, that people who write that journalists should remain anonymous, because today the political climate is very different. Today the political situation is very different. We often hear that, when someone writes about something or against someone, people often have a political vendetta. We all recently heard of the murder of this, Gauri Lankesh, the murder of this journalist in Bangalore. So, guys, so this is what the author is saying, that people wanted to know whether he believes that people should remain unknown when they write and report about something. So, well, Ashok has asked, how do you remember so many words? Well, Ashok, after I discuss the meanings, I will give you examples from each of these sentences, how these words are used in different sentences, and those sentences will help you to understand the meaning and to remember the meaning. Okay. So then in my journalism classes, I often draw attention to the searing or the opening lines from Janet Malcolm's column, The Journalist and the Murderer. So he says that whenever he does a journalism class, he often refers to this line that is from this famous piece of writing by this author known as Janet Malcolm. So what is said in that, in that quote? Every journalist who is not too stupid or not too full of himself to notice what is going on knows what he does is morally indefensible. So he says every journalist who's not too dumb, not too stupid, nor is he like, dude, like I'm the best, I know everything. So every journalist who is not extremes, who is moderate. What would the two extremes be? One who knows that, oh, I don't know anything, yaar, I'm so stupid. And the other would be like, oh, I know everything, you don't have to tell me anything. So any journalist who is like this knows that what he does, the fact that he is anonymous, the fact that he poses to people as different kind of people and makes them talk, things that they won't tell any people, whatever they do cannot be justified under any kind of situation. So it is indefensible. Okay, next, he is a kind of confidence man preying on people's vanity, ignorance and loneliness, gaining their trust and betraying them without remorse. So what does he say here? The author says here that, any journalist who does this, he is a confident man. Why? Because he is invariably making fool of people. Why? He is making them talk about people's vanity. So imagine if I am very famous, I am very popular, and I just like to talk about myself. So I have a lot of vanity. Means I am full of myself. I think, oh, I am the best. There's no one like me. So people who have vanity, who are very full of themselves, like to talk. Or someone who is very lonely, he does not have someone to talk. so no, those kind of people are very fond of talking. So again, two extremes. First he says stupid and people who are full of themselves. Then again he says people who are, you know, who think very highly of themselves, or people who are very lonely and looking to talk to someone. And he says that what a journalist actually does is he makes them trust them, and then he breaks their trust without feeling bad about it. Therefore, what a journalist does is indefensible. It cannot be justified. All right. The question posed by, so when he quoted this, the questions posed by, so you know, whenever you quote something, people always ask you questions. So then the questions that were asked by students were sharp and honest. How to deal with a multi-platform media reality where no one likes to miss a story. So they wanted to know that how do they deal with the situation where everyone wants more information. You know, people just want to read everything with the, you know, we know that now there is not only print. Of course, there are newspapers, magazines, there are TV news channels, and of course there is social media. So there is so much news coming in everywhere that every good reader today wants to read every single piece of news that is available for him. So how do journalists and students who are studying journalism deal with such situations? Okay, in an opaque structure where access has become a favor provided by those in power, what options are left for a reporter to do their job ethically and in a competent manner? So here, if you notice, what does this mean? That in an opaque structure, what does opaque know? Opaque mean, you know, guys, go back to physics. Transparent, when you can see through something. Translucent, when you can partially see. Opaque, when you cannot see through something. So in an opaque structure, meaning in a structure that is not clear, where we do not know what is going on, that in an opaque structure which cannot be accessed by us, which can be accessed only by people who are in power, it is extremely important that reporters today do their job ethically, means they do their job in the best possible way and in a competent way, meaning they do it in the best skillful way, and they do not charge, they do not cheat their ethics, they do not do anything that is wrong, that they should not be doing. So well guys, now that we have discussed the passage, discussed the meanings of these words, let me go on to the next slide. So on this slide guys, you will notice that this slide and the slide following it, I have put the meanings of all the words. Now let's go through meanings of words, and for every word I will give you one sentence. So for every word that is there guys, I will give you one sentence that will help you understand the meaning of the word better. And if you have any doubts, please ask. Interaction is really good. It will help you understand better. It will ensure that you have actually understood the meaning of the word. So let's look at the first word guys. Okay, impunity, we said exemption from punishment or freedom from injurious consequences of an action. So like we said guys in the previous slide, if you notice, we had said freedom from punishment. Now you might have done something really bad that you should not have done, but you got freedom from punishment. It is impunity. So let me give you an example. Okay, he received impunity. He received impunity for past HR violation. Okay, so what can we make out from this sentence guys? Past HR violation means this guy had made a mistake in the past. He had violated some human resources. Some human resource rules were violated by him. But he received impunity. He received exemption from the punishment. Yes, exactly. Exemption from punishment would be the right word of this, in the exact meaning of this word. Let's go on to the second word guys. The second word being provocative. What is provocative? When you make someone causing anger or a sudden strong reaction, and usually this is something that we do deliberately. Okay, so let's look at an example here. Okay, let me just think an example. The provocative The provocative actions of the king killed whatever little respect the people had for him. So now, if you notice, what does this mean? The provocative actions of the king killed whatever respect the people had for him. Now, killed whatever little respect people had for him means that people anyways had very little respect for the king, and now what he did, killed that remaining part of the respect also. That remaining respect that people had for the king also just went away. So whatever the king did made people really angry. It caused them to be extremely angry. Therefore, we can say the meaning of provocative is causing anger or a strong reaction. Okay, so let's look at the first. Someone has asked me to repeat the first sentence. Impunity. He received impunity for past HR violation. He had, there were some things, some rules of HR that he did not follow. So he received impunity means he was exempted from the punishment. Okay, so Rakhi has written us a sentence. She writes, Ram Rahim surprisingly got impunity. Okay, surprisingly got the impunity. Rakhi, we need to remove the from the sentence because the is used before a definite article and impunity is not a definite article. We will not use any article before impunity. So you can say yes, surprisingly Ram Rahim got impunity, or Ram Rahim surprisingly got impunity. So yes, that would be correct. Okay, let's move on to the next sentence, guys. The next word, guys, credibility. The quality of being trusted and believed in. Now, if you go back to the passage, guys, the passage talks of the fact that we should be, journalists should have credibility. We should be able to judge, we should be able to trust journalists. So let's look at what our sentence here can be. Credibility, we can say, okay, my friend's credibility took a back seat when we caught her lying red-handed. Okay. So now what does this sentence mean? Sorry guys, what does this sentence mean? My friend's credibility took a backseat when we caught her lying red-handed. So my friend was lying. Now lying is something we don't like. Whenever someone tells a lie and we catch it, our trust is always betrayed. Our trust is always broken. So this is exactly what the sentence brings across, that my friend's credibility took a backseat. So when we stop trust, so yes, Dev, you can say trust in some ways, that credibility is actually trust. So the trust we had in my friend, whatever credibility we had, it took a backseat. It went back because why? Because we understood that she was lying and we caught her. We caught her red-handed while she was doing something that she lied to us about. So onslaught. What does onslaught mean? An overwhelming large number of people or things. Now, if you remember in the passage, we have talked of an onslaught of articles means that a large number of articles. So let's go back, guys. Onslaught, an overwhelmingly large number of people or things. So let's look at a sentence, where we can explain this. Okay, so after the apartment collapsed, there was an onslaught of people outside the builder's office. Now, imagine that you stay in, imagine that, so okay, Dev has asked, Dev has said attack. Well, Dev, the word onslaught has two meanings. One meaning is attack and one meaning is large numbers. So in the context in which onslaught is used in this passage, it means large numbers. Okay, so after the apartment collapsed, so there's an apartment, we all read that, it's really sad that, whenever monsoons happen, there are some old buildings in Mumbai that usually collapse, which is really heartening, a lot of people lose their lives. So we often hear such news, so let's go back. Okay, so when apartment collapsed, there was an onslaught of people outside the builder's office. So people were really angry and a large number of people went to the builder's office. Okay, Rakhi has given us another sentence. People working for me don't have credibility in me, which makes me provocative. Okay, Rakhi, so people working for me don't have credibility in me. Till there the sentence is correct. Which provokes me. Which provokes me would be better. Which makes me provocative is not grammatically correct. Which provokes me, because provoke is actually a noun. Provoke is actually a verb because it's referring to the action. And provocative, this is provocative. That provocative is actually an adjective. So something can only provoke you and something in itself is provocative. So you can probably, if you want to use credibility and provocative in the same sentence, let me think. You can probably say people working for me don't have credibility in me and this provokes me. Or I was provoked when people who work for me did not have credibility in me. Or you can also say my provocative nature came out when people who work for me did not have credibility in me. So provocative is basically a characteristic, it's a trait. So it has to, so you can probably say, like I said, I get provocative when people who work for me do not have credibility in me. Okay guys, let's go back to onslaught. Well, like we were saying, onslaught, after the apartment collapsed, there was an onslaught of people outside the builder's office. We can also say when there is anything that happens in the country that really disturbs the people, there is an onslaught of protesters outside India Gate in Delhi. Onslaught of protesters means a large number of protesters. Okay, so Tarun here is asking us why which make me provocative is wrong. Okay guys, which makes me angry. Now you have to understand that provocative is an adjective or an adverb depending on how it is used. So there has to be a noun or there has to be a verb with which the word provocative is used, right guys? So where is an adjective used? An adjective is a noun. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. What is an adverb? An adverb is a verb that describes an action. So whenever we use the word provocative, a noun or a verb has to be present for us to be able to describe that action or describe that thing or that person that we are talking about. So therefore, which makes me provocative is not correct English. Okay, so I hope you guys have got that. Let's move on to the next word. The next word is emanating, which means to originate from. So let me think of a sentence. Okay, so let me think of a sentence, guys. I can probably say, okay, the music emanating from my neighbor's house after midnight was annoying. Okay, so look at this sentence, guys. Look at the sentence. The music emanating from my neighbor's house after midnight was annoying. Now the music was coming from my neighbor's house. It was originating from my neighbor's house and it was very annoying. I was getting very angry. So I hope you have understood the meaning of the word emanating here. Okay, let's look at the next. Okay, a warning or proviso of specific stipulations, conditions or limitations basically means when you warn someone about the conditions and the limitations that something has. Okay, so let's let's try and find a sentence. Let me think of a sentence. Okay. Okay, I think I have got a sentence. Apart from the minor caveats, the committee performed better than expected. Okay, so let's read the sentence here, guys. Apart from the minor caveats, the committee performed better than. So yes, they've, okay, before I go on to caveats, I can see they've means create. I won't say create, but I would more like say originate. You know, create is something that you make from scratch, whereas originate is about coming from where something comes from. So therefore, emanating, guys, would be coming from somewhere and not creating. So slight borderline difference. We may often get confused by, we may often get confused by the usage of the word, but remember, emanating means coming from, originating from. So that is actually the exact meaning of the word. So caveats, apart from the minor caveats, the committee performed better than expected. So apart from missing the warning that the committee had got, that the committee had apart from certain stipulations and conditions that they missed, they performed better. Okay, so Manoj has written a sentence. Manoj says, tsunami emanating earthquakes from sea. Okay, tsunami emanating. Okay, Manoj, it is actually an incomplete sentence. I would say this is more like a phrase. Emanating tsunami, emanating earthquakes coming from sea. No, it's incomplete. There is something that the sentence is missing. Or we could, probably say, rephrase the sentence and say, tsunami is a sign of earthquakes emanating in the sea. Tsunami is a sign of the earthquakes that are coming from the sea, that are originating from the sea. So you could probably say tsunami is a sign of earthquakes emanating from the sea. So that would probably be the correct answer, be the correct way to put this across. Okay, Shantanu here is asking us, what is the meaning of the word proviso? So well, a warning or proviso is actually, again, when you tell someone that this is something not to be done. So proviso is actually a set of things that are not to be done. That is, guys, what we call proviso. So well, guys, I hope you have understood. Let us move ahead and let's look at the other words that we got from this passage. Okay, so one of the words that we got from this passage, guys, was anonymity. So anonymity is the condition of being unknown, where I don't want to know something, where something is unknown. Okay, so now let me think of a sentence. Let me just write it. A lot of female authors wrote in anonymity. A lot of female authors wrote in anonymity in 17th, 18th century Europe. Okay, so what does this sentence means, guys? A lot of female authors wrote in anonymity in 17th 18th century Europe. Now we all know 17th 18th century was technically a very difficult time for females. You know, they were restricted, certain things were not allowed to them, they had hard social boundaries. So there were a lot of women authors, you know, like a lot of women authors who wrote that time. They were published also, but they wrote under anonymity so that no one should come to know that, you know, it's a female who is writing. Because if they would come to know it's a female who is writing, you know, she would be ostracized from the society, removed from the society, or often her work would not be published at all. So an interesting fact for me to mention here should be, you know, probably Jane Austen was the first British writer to be published in the 17th century. So, well, yes, that is what, guys, anonymity means, the condition of not being known. And an example that I have given you guys is a lot of female authors wrote in anonymity in 17th, 18th century Europe. Okay, guys, let's go on to the next word, that is indefensible. Guys, what does the word indefensible mean? Indefensible means something that cannot be justified by argument, that you cannot justify no matter what. So let's look at a sentence. Okay. Often politicians defend the indefensible even when proof is found against them. Okay, so what did we learn, guys? That indefensible is something that we cannot do. Okay, so in this indefensible, sorry guys, is something that we cannot justify, something that is wrong. So my example here is, often politicians defend the indefensible even when there is proof against them. Now defend means to protect. So what do politicians do? That they say that, you know, when there is proof against you, you cannot justify it. You know, let's say for example, imagine guys, tomorrow I go out and I commit a murder. You know, I commit a murder, and when I commit the murder, there is an eyewitness who sees me committing the murder, and also let's say it's been captured on camera. So there is proof that, you know, I have done something wrong. The fact that I have not, you know, the fact that I have done the crime is obvious. And if I go ahead and say that I have not done the crime, it is indefensible. It cannot be justified by argument. So exactly when politicians defend the indefensible, even when justice, you know, even when there is proof against them. Okay, I can see Rakhi has put a question here. She asks an example of the word anonymous. Okay, let me say. An anonymous person sent me a beautiful birthday gift. Anonymous, a person who is unknown, someone who I did not know. An unknown person sent me a birthday gift. Or let us say, the businessman got an anonymous blackmail letter from a person asking him for a ransom. Again, a businessman got a letter from someone who was not known, and that person asked him for a ransom. Okay guys, let's move ahead to the word vanity. Vanity is when we have excessive pride in something or in one's own self, you know, when we are too proud of our own selves. So let's look at a sentence for vanity. Okay, so this is, you know, very obvious. Throughout history, vanity has been a major reason for the downfall of great men and women. So there it goes. So guys, what does this sentence mean? Vanity, when we are extremely proud of ourselves. So throughout history, vanity has been a major source of downfall for great men. So whenever people have too much pride in themselves, or whenever they think that, you know, they are the best, nobody can be better than them, often that is the reason for their downfall. Often that is when their downfall starts, and history has proved this time immemorial, time and again. Okay, I can see Dev has asked me the meaning of inequitable. Now, equitable is actually equal distribution. Equal distribution of anything is called equitable. Inequitable would be something that is not equally done, you know, something that is done in an unequal way. And yes, vanity is pretty similar to bragging. So bragging is the action, guys. Bragging is the verb. You know, he was bragging about himself. The person brags too much. Vanity is what you have when you brag. So vanity is like the characteristic, and the characteristic of displaying that, you know, the action of displaying that characteristic would be bragging. So a person who brags too much is a person whom you would describe he or she has vanity. So that is how vanity and bragging are related. Okay guys, let's go to the next word, remorse. Remorse is a deep sense of feeling sorry, regret or guilt. Okay. So let's look at the sentence here. Okay, he was full of remorse when he realized, okay, R-E-A-L-I, he realized that his action had led to the old man, losing his eyesight. Okay. So what do we do here? Guys? So this person, he felt a deep sense of regret, deep sense of guilt, deep sense of sorry when he realized that his action, that he had done something because of which a person lost his life. A deep sense of sorry and guilt. Okay. So Shantanu here is asking me, what is the difference between vanity and ego? Well, guys, they always say that, you know, it is, one should have a little bit of ego. Ego is sometimes important to protect your self-interest, but having too much of ego, displaying too much of ego is vanity. So some ego extremely important, but the minute some ego becomes too much ego, then it becomes vanity. So Dev, like you said, I think both are same. I won't say that, you know, let us say, you know, I have done some work, I have been working day and night for something, and someone comes and tells me, oh, you're stupid, you're good for nothing. They have hurt my ego, they have hurt my self-pride. So ego, till the time it is self-pride, is correct, but the minute the ego, our ego becomes too much, we start thinking of it too much, then too much ego is what would be vanity. Alright guys, let's move to the next word, that is posed. Now posed is when you present someone, or when you constitute, or you know, you ask someone a problem, you present someone with a problem. And of course, another commonly used meaning of the word pose is take a particular position to be photographed or painted. You know, like often, you know, the model posed for the photograph. The model posed for the camera. In that case, it would be the second meaning. But here, guys, if you notice, we have used the first meaning of the word in the passage to present or constitute. So, well, let's say the reporters posed some tricky questions which the minister did not know how to handle. So what happened here, guys? The reporters asked some tricky questions. The reporters asked some tricky questions to the minister, which the minister could not answer. Okay, looks like we are still stuck on ego. Well, Dave says more ego shows. No, Dave, that is what I'm saying. Less ego is good. Less ego is self-pride. More ego is vanity. When you have too much ego, that is negative. That is when you have vanity. Whereas having little bit ego is equivalent to self-pride, and that is extremely important. So, little ego equal to self-pride, little amount of ego, little amount of self-pride important. Too much ego equal to vanity, not good, negativity. Okay, so I hope with this we are clear. Let's move to the next word, guys. Competent. Competent when you have the ability, skill or knowledge to do something. Okay, so common just sentence out of my head. My boss thought I was competent enough to do the job, so he gave me the responsibility. So what happens here, guys? My boss thought that I was competent enough. I have the right set. I had the right skill set. He thought that I was the right person. I had the right amount of skill and expertise to do the job. Therefore, he gave the job to me. Okay, guys, with this we come to an end of our session for the day. I hope you guys are not going to be scared of reading passages now where you do not know meanings of words, because remember, the meaning of every word lies in its context. Ji haan, like I was saying, you need to read one sentence above and one sentence below, and words surrounding the word which you do not know, and often with a little bit of common sense, with a little bit of attention, it is extremely easy for you guys to identify the meanings of words. So I'm sure, guys, next time you find a passage where there are some words whose meanings you do not know, you're not going to be scared, but rather you would dig, you would dive deep within and go ahead and find out the meanings of those words. So, well, for now, it's a sign off from me, Surabhi at TalentSprint. Remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube so that you can keep watching many more such videos and you keep getting regular updates every time we post new videos and every time we go live on YouTube. So, guys, remember to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Till then, it's a sign off. Bye from me.